Shedeur Sanders has been overlooked before, passed over in the draft, sidelined at Colorado despite putting up numbers. But even those familiar with his journey weren't ready for what surfaced from Brown's practice. An explosive clash with Kevin Stefanski that echoed far deeper than sideline frustration. It called back every snub and slight he's endured, this time caught on camera, as Sanders confronted the very system that's boxed him out.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
His calm yet pointed challenge to Stefanski wasn't about one play. It was about years of being told to wait, to be quiet, to not upset the order. This viral moment isn't just another NFL sideline spat. It's a breaking point. For Sanders, it represents defiance against a pattern of suppression. For the Browns, it signals a leadership crisis built on bias, favoritism, and fear of disruption. Sanders didn't just speak up. He exposed the structure trying to silence him. You don't need a slow-motion replay to understand what just went down in Cleveland. The footage was short, unfiltered, and loud in every way that matters. Shedeur Sanders, Kevin Stefanski, one practice field, one boiling point, and now the whole world knows. The video starts with Shedeur pressing Stefanski, direct, unshaken, asking why the team's offense is a mess and why, despite all his prep, he's being kept on the sidelines like a forgotten backup. The tone isn't disrespectful. It's sharp, yes, but it's controlled, calculated. The kind of tone you use when you've run out of patience and out of excuses to believe in a broken process. Stefanski? He crumbles in real time, deflects, doesn't answer the question, shifts the blame. You can see it. He's not expecting to be challenged. Not like this. Not by someone the organization has worked so hard to mute. This wasn't just a heated moment during drills. This was the curtain being pulled back. Because for months now, the Shedeur situation has been quiet on the outside and chaotic underneath. A slow simmer of PR micromanagement, silent treatment, and calculated erasure. But the footage? That blew it wide open. And now, there's no walking it back. Let's go straight to it. Shedeur Sanders is not being evaluated fairly. That's not speculation. That's not some overhyped fan theory. That's what this entire incident proves. From the defensive coach response to the fact that Shedeur's name has basically become a banned phrase in press conferences, the message is crystal clear. This team has made up its mind, and it's not based on performance. You've got a quarterback who showed confidence in a post-practice interview. Not arrogance. Not delusion, confidence. He said he was ready, that he's been ready, that he knows what he brings. And instead of leaning into that energy, Cleveland tried to smother it. The response? PR handlers, name avoidance, game reps that never come. And then there's Dillon Gabriel, the starting QB who's somehow still starting even as the Browns sit on a 2-7 record with an offense that can't score, can't move, and can't win. It's not even subtle. He's underperforming. The system isn't working. But Stefanski's loyalty? Untouched. The favoritism? Transparent. And when you dig deeper, the conflict of interest becomes harder to ignore. Shared agents, past collegiate ties, a good old boy's safety net that Sanders will never be part of. That favoritism isn't just unfair. It's destructive. It's the kind of thing that kills locker room chemistry and drains the trust from every player watching. Because if Shedeur can get iced out like this, while clearly doing the work and staying game ready, what does that mean for everyone else? What does that say about accountability? It says it doesn't exist. What's even more infuriating is how calculated the silencing has been. Stefanski won't say Sanders' name in public. That's not an oversight. That's deliberate. He's been reduced to the other guy, monitored by team PR, and erased from the media narrative. And still, through all that, Sanders has kept his composure. That's what makes the confrontation so powerful. He didn't lose his cool. He didn't take it to social media. He took it directly to the man in charge and said what everyone's been too afraid, or too political, to say out loud. This system is broken. And for what? What is Cleveland protecting? A 2-7 record? A quarterback with worse numbers than half the league's backups? A status quo that's built more on relationships than results? This isn't just about a QB battle. It's about power. It's about control. It's about a team desperately trying to keep a lid on what happens when you refuse to play by their unspoken rules. And Shedeur? He broke that lid clean off. The conversation has now moved from whispers to full-blown scrutiny. The fans see it. The media's watching. The locker room? You can bet the respect he's earned from teammates is growing every day because he's doing what few players in his position dare to do, standing up in a system that wants him invisible. And here's what makes this especially damning. This pattern of marginalizing Shedeur didn't start in Cleveland. It goes back to college. Despite his record, his stats, his poise under pressure, he was passed over again and again because of who his father is and what people think that means. The NFL has always had a complicated relationship with players who come in with their own brand, their own voice, especially when they're black, confident, and unapologetic. There's a long history of quarterbacks, like Shedeur, being held to a different standard. They get labeled as too flashy, too confident, too untraditional. Meanwhile, guys with the right connections and the right image get the benefit of the doubt, even when they're actively hurting their teams on the field. And that's what makes Cleveland's behavior feel so familiar, so systemic. This isn't about merit. It's about perception. And that's why Sanders is being silenced. Because his presence threatens the hierarchy. His confidence threatens the narrative. And his readiness. That's the most dangerous thing of all. The Browns know he's ready. That's why they're afraid to acknowledge him. Because once you acknowledge talent, you have to justify not using it. And Cleveland can't. Not with this record. Not with this offense. Not with this coach. Now the question becomes, what happens next? Does the team finally own up to the fact that they've let bias and favoritism dictate their quarterback decisions? Or do they let this leak fester and wait for the public backlash to spiral out of control? More importantly, does Shedeur stay? Because there's only so long a player can be punished for speaking the truth. There's only so long a competitor can wait while politics wins over performance. If Cleveland doesn't change course, they'll lose him. And not just symbolically. They'll lose him to a team that's actually paying attention. A team that sees value in confidence, in resilience, in leadership. Right now, the Browns are on the edge of a full organizational meltdown. Not just because they're losing games, but because they've lost credibility. And once that goes, there's no patching that up with press releases. The confrontation with Stefanski was never just about one moment at practice. It was the dam breaking, the lie unraveling, the internal dysfunction spilling out into the public eye. And thanks to that footage, there's no more hiding behind silence. If you've been watching this unfold and thinking, how is this still happening in the NFL? Go ahead and hit that like button. Drop a comment. Should Shedeur stay and fight for a system that's trying to erase him, or leave for a team that actually wants to win? And if you want more deep dives into the stories teams hope you'll ignore, subscribe. Because we're going to keep breaking down the chaos they can't cover up. This wasn't just a practice clash. It was the moment everything changed. The fact that it even got to this point, caught on camera, shared online, dissected frame by frame, tells you everything you need to know about the culture inside the Cleveland Browns organization right now. This wasn't some one-time sideline argument in the heat of a bad practice. This was a boiling point, a culmination of months of buried tension, unanswered questions, and a young quarterback who's been consistently, deliberately sidelined, not because of performance, but because of politics. And now, the politics have spilled out into the open. Shedeur Sanders wasn't yelling. He wasn't throwing a tantrum. What you saw in that leaked footage was something even more dangerous to a system like Cleveland's. Calm confrontation. A demand for clarity. A young player saying, explain the logic. Justify this silence. Tell me why I'm not allowed to compete fairly. And Kevin Stefanski's response? He had none. He dodged. He got defensive. And in those awkward, vague leadership by deflection responses, he confirmed what so many people have suspected. There is no football reason. There's just a system built to protect its favorites and suppress anything, or anyone, that threatens to shake up the pecking order. It's favoritism dressed up as strategy. And right now, it's hurting more than just Shedeur Sanders. It's crippling the entire organization. Because the Browns aren't just losing games. They're losing credibility. In the locker room. In the media. And now, with fans who can no longer pretend this is just internal team business. You're sitting at 2-7. Your offense has no pulse. And you're clinging to a quarterback who hasn't produced, not because he's earned the role, but because he's connected. Dylan Gabriel might not be actively asking for this protection, but he's the poster child for what happens when NFL loyalty gets confused with competence. There's no clearer example of what happens when accountability takes a back seat to relationships. And here's what makes it worse. This isn't just about underperformance, it's about refusal to even consider alternatives. Stefanski and the Browns front office haven't just ignored Shedeur's presence. They've erased it. Intentionally. This is a player who's done everything right. Showed up, stayed quiet, kept his focus, trained hard, didn't run to the media, didn't take shots at his teammates, just put his head down and stayed ready. And what's he gotten in return? PR monitors. Leadership that refuses to say his name. Reps that never come. And now, public silence in response to a viral confrontation that exposed all of it. Let's not act like this is some rookie with no upside. Shedeur Sanders is a legit talent. Arm strength, mobility, football IQ. He checks the boxes. The tape from college speaks for itself. He's not asking for special treatment. He's asking for the same treatment. A fair evaluation. A fair shot. And instead, he's being treated like a PR liability the team's too scared to admit exists. And we all know why. It's the name. The legacy. The expectations. The confidence. The fact that he talked like a starter before they were ready to see him as one. The fact that he said, "I'm ready," and meant it. And the fact that deep down they know he's right, but admitting that would mean appending a system that's protected the same faces and favored the same networks for years. This goes beyond football. It touches everything the league still struggles with: who gets opportunities, how narratives are shaped, and how young, confident, black quarterbacks still get labeled controversial for doing exactly what their peers are applauded for. Shedeur Sanders is not controversial. He's not difficult. He's not uncoachable. He's just not quiet. And that is what makes him dangerous to this system. He's not going to wait around while people in suits try to manage his image into oblivion. He's not going to smile for cameras while being ghosted from game plans. He's not going to shrink so that other people can stay comfortable. That confrontation in practice was his line in the sand. And now, the league has to deal with the fallout. The Browns can't PR spin their way out of this. The video's out. The media's asking questions. Fans are demanding accountability. And now, Shedeur's teammates are starting to show subtle signs of support. Whether it's social media activity, body language on the sidelines, or just how they talk about quarterback competition in interviews. People inside that locker room know what's going on. This isn't just about respect. It's about justice. Because when a player like Shedeur gets iced out for being vocal, while others get rewarded for staying in line despite poor performance, it creates a rot. A quiet rot that starts with one unfair decision and spreads through the entire team. Trust dies. And once trust is gone, it's only a matter of time before performance collapses. And that's exactly what we're seeing in Cleveland right now. So what now? What does Shedeur do? Stay and keep fighting for a shot in a system that's made it clear they don't want to give him one? Or demand a trade and go somewhere that actually values competition, that actually rewards preparation and resilience? It's a brutal decision. And either way, it's going to define the next chapter of his career. But whatever happens, the damage inside Cleveland has already been done. This was the tipping point. The leaked footage wasn't just a glimpse into a bad day. It was a mirror held up to an organization that's been lying to itself, lying to its fans, lying to its players. And now the mask is off. Shedeur stood up. He asked the hard questions. And in doing so, he didn't just fight for his own future. He lit a fire under a conversation the league has been ducking for years. Why are some players allowed to struggle and fail, while others are never even allowed to try? Why are relationships more powerful than results? Why do some coaches view confidence as a threat instead of a strength? And most importantly, how many other players have been quietly buried under the same excuses, the same bias, the same invisible ceiling? This isn't just about one quarterback in Cleveland anymore. This is about every player who's been told to wait their turn while someone else fumbled theirs over and over again. This is about every team that says we're all about merit while letting politics drive the depth chart. This is about systemic gatekeeping in plain sight. And now that it's been exposed, it's not going back into the shadows. Not this time. What happened between Shedeur Sanders and Kevin Stefanski during that now infamous practice wasn't some blip. It was a reveal, a confirmation of everything people have whispered behind closed doors for months. The kind of moment that tells you, this isn't about football anymore. This is about control, power, ego, and how easily talent can get buried when it doesn't fit the mold. For weeks, maybe months, Shedeur's name has been conspicuously missing from every presser, every media scrum, every generic "we're evaluating all options" line Stefanski tosses out after another embarrassing Sunday. And now we know why. It's not that Shedeur can't play. It's that his confidence makes people uncomfortable. Because when a young black quarterback walks in the door, already knowing his value, not waiting for permission, not asking for crumbs, that shakes people. Especially in a league where you're expected to earn it on someone else's terms, no matter how broken those terms are. Shedeur's not arrogant. He's aware. Aware of how good he is. Aware of how hard he's worked. And aware of how obvious it is that Cleveland's system is protecting people who haven't delivered. Let's just stop pretending Dillon Gabriel has earned anything this season. The offense is non-existent. Drives stall. Momentum dies before it even starts. And yet, week after week, Stefanski stands there telling us this is the best option. That we like where we're at. Where exactly is that? 2 wins. 7 losses. Fans checked out. Teammates frustrated. A locker room quietly splintering. And through it all, Shedeur Sanders, the backup who's been locked into the playbook, handling reps with poise, doing everything asked of him, has been shut out of the conversation entirely. Not because of what he lacks, but because of who he is. This is where you see the deeper cracks in the NFL. The league talks about fairness, about giving players a shot, about how the best man plays. But situations like this show the truth. That only applies if you don't disrupt the power structure. And Shedeur? He disrupted it the moment he didn't shrink. The moment he said, "I'm ready," in that interview, you could feel the tension. Like a fuse got lit behind the scenes. Suddenly, media mentions dropped off. PR tightened its grip. The organization went into hush mode, as if he'd broken some unspoken rule. How dare he speak up before they gave him permission? They tried to erase him by overmanaging him, not letting him talk, not letting him play, not even letting his name come up in public conversations. But here's the thing about suppression. It only works until the moment it doesn't. And that moment was the leaked practice footage. There's no walking it back now. The world saw the confrontation, saw Shedeur stand tall, cool-headed, asking reasonable, fair questions about his role, his future, and the offensive direction of a team that can't score. And we all saw the head coach flail in response. What was Stefanski going to say? That he can't play Shedeur because it'll upset the delicate balance of favoritism they've built around Gabriel? That the same agent representing their starter is calling the shots on who gets development time? He said nothing, and his silence spoke volumes. The problem with organizations like this is they think their silence is protection. That if they just ignore the noise, it'll pass. But this isn't noise, it's exposure. Because now, fans are connecting the dots. Media outlets are starting to say what insiders have known. That this isn't about development. This is about deliberate exclusion. And here's the brutal irony. In trying to make Shedeur Sanders invisible, they made him impossible to ignore. This whole time, he's been playing the long game. Staying ready. Staying professional. And now that the world finally sees how he's being treated, the pressure's no longer on him. It's on Cleveland. They have to explain why this is happening. Why the one quarterback who's shown maturity, composure, and a willingness to lead, even while being disrespected, can't get a single meaningful opportunity in a season that's already spiraling. And guess what? There is no good answer. So where does this go? Because the Browns are boxed in now. If they suddenly give Shedeur reps, it proves they've been playing politics all along. If they don't, it confirms they're willing to lose just to protect an old guard that's failing them. And Shedeur? He has a choice to make. Stay and keep fighting an uphill battle in an organization that treats visibility like a threat, or get out. Push for a trade. Land with a team that actually wants competition, that sees confidence as a strength, not a challenge to authority. It's not an easy call. He's earned the respect of the locker room. His teammates see what's happening. And there's power in staying and forcing the system to face itself. But there's also no shame in leaving when you realize the game is rigged. The key difference here is that Shedeur knows his worth. They can't gaslight him into thinking he's overstepping. They can't convince him he needs to wait his turn, while less qualified players get opportunity after opportunity. This moment has stripped away all the spin, all the false narratives. The politics are visible now. And you have to ask, what does it say about the league when speaking up is treated as a bigger offense than underperforming on the field? What does it say when a quarterback can do everything right on the field, in the film room, in the locker room, and still be seen as a disruption just for asking for fairness? It says the system isn't built to reward talent. It's built to protect comfort. And Shedeur Sanders is anything but comfortable for them. So now, the spotlight's burning hot. The Browns are under scrutiny. The league is watching. And the fans are done with the excuses. You don't get to hide behind coach speak when the footage tells the truth. You don't get to call it a meritocracy while ignoring the player who's been quietly proving himself behind the scenes week after week, while the field collapses in front of you. And you definitely don't get to treat confidence as a crime while losing games on repeat. If Shedeur walks, it won't be seen as quitting. It'll be seen as refusing to let himself be used as a pawn in a system that never planned to give him a shot. If he stays, it'll be on his terms, with pressure building every week, every loss, every public misstep from leadership. Because once the public sees the imbalance, you can't unring that bell. This was never just a practice clash. It was a moment of clarity, a hard reset on everything the team tried to hide, and a warning to the rest of the league. The days of quiet compliance are done. There are more Shedeurs coming. More players who won't let legacy, race, or system bias define their path. And more fans who are finally asking the right questions. So if you're watching this saga unfold and you're as frustrated, fired up, and exhausted by the double standards as the rest of us, hit that like button. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Should Shedeur demand a trade, or stay and make the system answer for itself? And if you want more breakdowns of the chaos they try to keep behind closed doors, subscribe. Because this league is built on stories they hope we never hear. And right now, Shedeur Sanders just made sure everyone's listening.